What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another fun fitness realty training video. This one is going to be all about seller's agency. So we are going to talk about exclusive right to sell. We're going to talk about the documents that go with that. We're going to show you everything that you need to know using our .loop e-signature platform to get that going. But first off, I wanted to just say how grateful I am for everybody here. I just really appreciate everybody taking the time out to learn about real estate. If you do find value out of these training videos, just please like, share, and subscribe down below. That will help me out immensely. All right, let's jump right into it. So I've got .loop opened up, as you guys know. I'm going to add a loop. So we're going to add a brand new loop. Every time that I load a brand new loop, you guys know there's only two ways that I love to put those in. If they are a buyer, I love to have everything associated with their name because every contract or every piece of documentation goes along with their name. And then if it is a listing, I love to have everything attached to that property address. So let's just call this one 123 Main Street. Now you can see that the property address is trying to be populated from Google. I don't use any of those Google links. And most of the time it is because .loop is associated nationwide, and most of the time those links don't work for our section. So I just recommend typing out the address, but don't use Google's mandates down here, or don't use anything populated from .loop. So once we get the address in there, I'm going to hit continue. Now this is a listing, so obviously you're going to want the listing template, so put the listing template. Then if you want to, there is an agent that utilizes the photos here and uploads a photo for every one of his listings. It looks really nice. For me, as you guys know, I'm a little bit lazier about that, so I haven't put any pictures in for mine. So I'm just going to skip that and hit done. Now .loop is creating our brand new 123 Main Street listing. All right, so it is a listing for sale. Obviously, if you're doing these types and status, that's tracking it in the reporting software. I don't utilize any of those, so you can really kind of do whatever you want with these. But for me, I just do listing for sale, status, pre-listing. And then let's assume this is going to be a $400,000 listing. And then when I get over here to the enter closing date, obviously we just took this listing. We don't have a closing deadline, so we don't know what to put in there. So for me, in this deadline, I usually just put how long I'm taking the contract for. If it's 6 months, 1 year, depends on what you guys are working with. So I would just make sure you're looking at that. So for me, I'm going to take this as a 1 year listing. So I'm going to bump this out to November 2024, which sounds crazy. Anyway, so I'm just going to put the last day in November 2024. And all this really does is racks and stacks your loops so that they are in some type of order so you can quickly find them. Whatever you guys do decide, though, you can really dictate whatever you want because all it does is help you quickly identify which loops are in your system so that you can find them easier. All right, now we're going to hit View Loop. As you guys know, this brings up the main loop page. It's got all of the templates that we've put in there as Fitness Realty, all the things that we've provided for you. But as you guys know, when you get into a loop, the very first thing that you should do is come down to the people and put in all the specific people for this transaction. So if you have a single person or a couple, or you have a corporation that's purchasing the property under a LLC or whatever, totally up to you and totally up to the buyers on how that's going to work, or sorry, up to the sellers on how that's going to work. So all you have to do is make sure that you understand who is on title and needs to actually sign to sell this property. Sometimes that's a good chat with title before you even get started. As you guys know, we have so many scammers out right now trying to say, hey, I have this vacant piece of property and I'm getting ready to sell it, and they will want you to do all this stuff and try to get a cash deal going. Just be very, very careful. A lot of those scammers, all they're trying to do is get that down payment money or a wire, and they actually won't be selling the property. So just be careful. But anyway, we're going to put in the sellers in here. So let's say we have Fred Flintstone selling this property. First, I'm going to just put my information as listing agent. So that's always good. Then you add your person, Fred Flintstone, full name, email, role as a seller. So you would just load that person or couple or 3 people or whatever. Just make sure you put all the people into this transaction. Now we're going to go into the documents that you need. So you can go into the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And it's got the autofill feature, obviously. Right now we're going to skip the autofill feature and just get right into it. So this is the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. This is the document that governs how you're going to list the property or what authorities you have while listing the property. So obviously it is between the company. So put Fitness Realty here, put your seller's names right here. Company includes the seller's agent. So put your own name right here. And then as authorized agent for the company starting on the effective date, which is when it is signed, when this document is signed until this deadline here. Make sure you do not put today's date in this box. I have seen more contracts that have today's date than I can count in here. So this listing I'm going to take for a full year. Remember, we put that in that closing deadline. So I'm going to put the 30th of November, 2024. Now, something else that you guys know, obviously you might not need a full year. So this just says, hey, sellers, I'm going to be working with you for a full year to get this done. Obviously, we want to do it much before that or much sooner than that, but sometimes the market conditions or your clients kind of dictate some of that, so it can get a little rough. But for every listing, I usually try to take it for a year. When we were at the height of the market and things were going bonkers, I always took my listings for 6 months because I knew it was going to be gone in 3 weeks, so it didn't matter. Then put the address in here. If it is multiple tax ID numbers, put that across here. But typically for a single family house, it'll just be like what we put in the folder when we first created this loop, 123 Main Street. So then we put 123 Main Street, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84123 or whatever it is. Okay, just make sure you put the property address. All right, this is the brokerage fee. As you guys know, with the National Association of Realtors and the lawsuit with that, brokerage fees are all like in the limelight. So we are pretty protected here in Utah because our brokerage fees are really spelled out on every contract that we have. But I would take extra time and explain that to your clients. And this is the great place to do that. So obviously when you're getting into here, everything is negotiable. You can't say, hey, our brokerage fee is 6% and that's the industry standard. What you can say is, our brokerage fee is 6%, and we charge that because we provide this, this, and this as value. And you guys know that when you're part of Fitness Realty, you can actually dictate how much you want to charge one of your clients. So if you have friends and family, you might want to run a friends and family discount, and you can actually put less in this. And sometimes sellers will really want to negotiate with you on commission because it is really expensive, and I totally understand that. So all you have to do is make sure you're providing the value that you are saying you're going to do and make sure that it kind of matches that percentage. So let's say I'm running my friends and family discount and I want to do a 4.5% listing. 4.5 totals the brokerage fee plus what you're going to add as the buyer's agent's commission down here. And now this form might change. We don't know. But right now, this is what we're working with. So this part down here says that we're going to offer up a portion of this 4.5% as commission for the buyer's agent and help them get covered. Let's say we're going to do, I'm going to come back to something, but let's say we're going to do 2.5% in this buyer's agent commission, which that might be what you want to offer. So that means out of this 4.5%, you're offering 2.5 to the other side, and your side is making 2%. Now, if you wanted to do a full, what we call a full commission listing, then most likely that would sound like 6%. But like I said, nothing's typical. All of it's negotiated on, so you can't say things like standard or typical or whatever. You can just say our brokerage firm charges 6%, and we get that fee for XYZ value. then we would offer 3% to the other side, or any combination of two numbers that you want to put in there. So I'm going to go back to my friends and family discount, like you guys know, and I'm going to put 4.5 back in there. We're going to do 2.5% for the commission on the other side. Now, something that I want to point out, and this is the big thing about commission, is that we always kind of talk about us and them and who's paying for what and who's on which side and whose pocket it's coming out of. But the crazy thing about commission is that as a seller and as a seller's agent, we're talking about the seller's commission and what might be going to the buyer's agent commission side as well, which makes it seem like everything's coming out of the seller's pocket. What I want to bring your attention to is that buyers, the ones that are bringing the money, are actually paying for everything in the transaction. They are the ones who are bringing they're bringing the funds to close. Now, it may look like a line item on the seller's balance sheet, or a seller might be paying for the real estate commissions or whatever. But at the end of the day, the buyer is bringing all the money, and in a roundabout way, they're the ones paying for everything anyways. So the whole mix up with commission and who's paying for what has come down to agents have not specifically brought enough attention to the commission that they charge or the brokerage fee that they charge and the value that they bring to the table. So if you're having an issue negotiating with your sellers or buyers about commission and the value that you bring to the table, come and talk to me more, because I love to show how much value Fitness Realty brings, and we go above and beyond to earn that brokerage fee. And we just provide that value, and you can see it in our Google reviews. People don't write 5-star Google reviews for crappy service. They write 5-star reviews for 10-star service. They can only just write 5 stars. So anyway, if you're having an issue there, just come and talk to me. All right, protection period, same thing like buyer's agency. Obviously, we're going to have a protection period. So if you sell if you list the property and it goes 12 months in that contract, or we do our full year for this contract, if they go to sell it to somebody that you showed it to during that 12 months, you're still protected. But a lot of people only use 1 month for protection period. I feel like the protection period and this contract, they really are binding, obviously, but if you have a client that really doesn't want to work with you, then don't work with them. Release them from the contract and let them go work with somebody else. So the beauty of this contract, though, is that it helps people understand what we're supposed to do during the contract. So the seller gets to have warranties and disclosures. They have to tell you everything they know about the property. Now, I've had some sellers not disclose things about property, and there's this age-old saying out there, buyers are liars and sellers are too. Everybody just kind of omits something that looks bad, and that just is the way it goes. But if you find out a material fact or defect about a property, now you're legally obligated to tell other people about that and make sure people understand that there's something there. But the seller's warranting that they are going to tell you honest and truthful things about the property. Agency relationships. This talks about what you're going to do as a seller's agent. Now, if you step into dual agency or limited agency, and in Fitness Realty, we practice dual agency, you can represent both sides in one transaction. Totally good. You just need to make sure everybody is aware that you are stepping in to be a limited agent. And if you are going to be a limited agent, you need a separate form that goes over limited agency with both your seller and your buyer. Make sure that everybody signs that. If they don't sign the limited agency form and you close, there is room that you leave yourself liable for a lawsuit. And so all we're trying to do is educate you so that you minimize how many lawsuits might come a knocking at your door. All right, then obviously professional advice. We don't provide tax services or advice. We don't provide legal services or advice, which kind of sounds crazy because we're going over a contract right now and you're helping somebody fill this out and getting them to sign it. So in a way, we practice some legal aspects, but to a very minor degree, because you can see in this contract, there's a lot of language that's pre-written for you. And that is the reason why we don't need a legal degree, is because we're just helping people through these boxes and giving them as much maximum advice as we can in our legal capacity. So try not to overstep that bounds. Anytime that you get a weird question that you're like, I just have no idea, don't say anything about it and say, I will find out the answer. Come and talk to me. All right, dispute resolution. This covers what happens there. Attorney's fees. This covers what happens with attorney's fees. Advertising and the seller's authorizations. This is different than the buyer's agency agreement. This goes over all of the things that the seller is willing to let you do for the property and get it out there to get it sold. Now, if a property or if a seller wants to be very reserved about how they list the property, or they want to be very controlling about where and when that property is put out onto the market, that makes it really difficult to sell the house. So in my opinion, marking any of these things or not doing some of these things is very, very disadvantageous for your seller, and they won't sell it for the most money. They won't sell it in the fastest amount of time. So you really want to have your seller on board with every single thing on here. So they're going to give you disclosure because you're going to disclose this property all over the MLS, which is the multiple listing service. You're going to disclose the square footage. You're going to use the county records most likely to do that. You're going to obtain financial information from the lender that has a note against that property, and the sellers are going to provide that information for you. You're going to get a key for the property so you can put it in the lockbox. You're going to put it on the MLS, the multiple listing service. If you're a member of Fitness Realty, we are a member of the board of realtors, so you have to be a member of the board as well and put your listing on the MLS. Something here really quick is if a seller doesn't want the property on the MLS, I personally probably wouldn't work with the seller because the home won't sell as quickly as it can. And the value, like I said in the beginning, the value that we provide is to help people sell their house the fastest and for the most money. If you're not going to put it on the MLS, it's going to be much lower than that. And so it's just part of doing good business. You might be able to hold open houses. The sellers are giving you authority to do that. It's not mandatory, of course. You're going to put a sign in the yard, potentially. And anything on this list can really be negotiated from the seller's standpoint. But like I said, the sellers want the property gone and they want to make the most money. So you need all the tools in your toolkit. There's a lot of other listed items on there. Just make sure you read through it and understand those. All right. And then personal property. This governs personal property on that specific property. Make sure you read through that and understand those items. And then attachment. If you have an attachment that is attached to this contract, you're going to put it here. We do have an addendum for listings. If you wanted to give them a 0.5% off of the commission, we do have the ability to do that. They would have to commit to doing something to make them the strongest version of themselves. Could be drink water, walk more, pray more, journal, whatever it is. But we have an avenue for that. And in today's market, the average home price in Salt Lake County is like $640. So that gives them about $3,200 in a credit, it gives $3,200 right off the top of the commission, which is pretty amazing. All right, and then if they are a foreign investment person, they live outside the country or are a foreign entity, this governs what happens to the selling proceeds with that. There is just more taxes withheld, stuff like that. But most of the time, you just have a seller that's here, and 99% of our deals have not had a foreign investor, and so you just mark is not a foreign person, and super easy. All right, and then equal housing opportunity. Obviously, if you violate equal housing, you will just get your license revoked and all sorts of stuff. All bad stuff happens to you. I just love to utilize equal housing. I feel like homeownership is really, really a grand idea in America. And I feel like if a person is able to purchase, then they should. And so I don't discriminate against any type of person. And so should you guys. You guys should do the same, especially if you want to keep your license active. All right, electronic transmission. Obviously, we're using e-signature platforms everywhere, every day. This just governs what happens with that. Due on sale. This governs what happens at closing and what happens with possession and keys and stuff like that. So read through that. The entire agreement. This governs what's attached to this document or just this document itself. And then the effective date, like I said, is the date that you sign this. Be very, very sure that you do not put today's date. I'm like hammering this down. Do not put today's date in this box right here. This is a future date. 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 1 month from now, if you think you can sell it that fast. But I wouldn't take anything in today's market. I wouldn't take a listing less than 1 year because you just don't know. All right, and then obviously down here at the very bottom of the page, you're going to get your clients to sign, and then you as the listing agent have authority to sign this on behalf of you and for the company. So you guys can sign that. All right, that's everything about the exclusive right to sell listing document. There's 2 more documents that I want to bring your attention to. One is the wire fraud disclosure form. Obviously, we've done that in the buyer broker agreement, but in the wire fraud alert disclosure, it just gives them some information about wire fraud. This is less important for a seller and way more important for a buyer because buyers are already going to be asked to wire money, and so will lenders and stuff in the transaction because, like I said, the buyer is the one that brings the money to the table. However, I have had sellers that had to bring money to the table to close on a transaction if they were upside down, and so they may have wire instructions that they have to look at. And so you just want to bring to their attention that wire fraud is on the rise and to be very, very cautious about doing a wire. So this just gives them some gee whiz information about wire fraud. Now, the document, the very last document, and we have a training video going over everything about seller's property condition disclosure, but this is the document that you're going to use. Obviously, there's an autofill portion. We're not going to go over this entire document. What I normally do is print this on paper and take it to the sellers and say, hey, have a great weekend, fill this out. I'm going to come back on Monday and pick it up from you. It is a laundry list of questions that asks the seller everything they know about the property. Could be water damage, could be a kitchen remodel, could be a roof replacement, HVAC replacement, how long they've owned it, if they've ever had it as a rental, stuff like that. The thing about this form is you can't help them fill it out. You can't give them advice on it other than here's this form and answer these questions. You want to be very, very cautious about trying to advise how to answer a specific question. I'll give you a story about one that I've had in the past. Anytime there's something with water damage, like the kitchen sink exploded and water was below the kitchen sink and may have gotten into the basement or whatever, sometimes sellers will ask you, hey, should I mark a yes for this kitchen sink question or water damage question? And I will say, well, what's the story behind it? And they'll say, well, the kitchen sink exploded and water went everywhere. Then I'll say, mark yes, like put it on there, disclose, and then write a story about what that is. You want to make sure that your sellers are being very clear and disclosing every material fact about the house. But this form is the one that you're going to use for that. And like I said, I usually just print it out and take it to them because it's a long form and there's places for them to fill out things. If you want to keep using it on .loop, you can, and it's totally okay. It's just very, very hard to use on .loop. So if you guys find out a great way to utilize it on .loop that doesn't make your clients go crazy, let me know what that is because I would love to learn that. But lately, the best way, like I said, print it out, take it to your clients. Don't have them sign or initial anything, and then just have them bring it back to you or go and pick it up. Once you've received it, though, then you can go through the initials and signatures with them. One thing to note there, one of the main reasons why I print it out and then go through that with them after they haven't initialed or signed anything is so that I can go through each page with them and then I get them to initial and sign on every block. So it just gives me an opportunity, though, to read over the seller's disclosure seller's property condition disclosure before I send it to the other side, just so that I'm not blindsided by anything that was like, hey, we redid the basement because a family member died down there or whatever. Anything on there that would come out in this disclosure, you really want to know about. Okay, that is the video all about seller's agency. Thanks for sticking it out with me this long. I know that sometimes the documents get a little long, but I hope that you find value in how to fill out these documents. And I hope you find a way that you can really protect your clients utilizing these documents. They really do help educate the public And like I said, with that lawsuit that happened, the more education the public can have, the better that we're going to look and the better that realtors across America can look. So I hope you guys do a great job out there. I know that this training will help you get elevated and help you become successful. So thanks so much, and we'll see you. Bye.